On-site leadership and management, creating positive and productive experiences for on-site managers and staff. It is important for all of our managers and leads to understand our managing philosophy and principles. Let's begin this training with a message from TFS founder Tommy Halverson. If you're going through the management training we're offering, it's quite reasonable to assume that you've been in the service industry long enough to know that it has many ups and downs, pros and cons, victories and failures. In catering, nothing could be more true. It is one of the most difficult yet rewarding professions a person in the hospitality industry can be involved in. There is no other profession where one can be subjected to every element Mother Nature can conjure up, a shifting timeline, a bridezilla/groomzilla, and failing equipment all at the same time, while still being fully expected to execute flawlessly. To say that catering is a challenge is to put it mildly. But at TFS, we love it. Why else would we do it? We don't see obstacles, we see challenges, and we see every challenge as an opportunity to try harder and go the extra mile. That is precisely what we want our clients to see. That differentiates us from every other caterer out there. Our effort. And not just any individual effort, our collective effort. After being in this industry for 10 years, I have come to realize two very important things. Number one, a successful event is the result of a team effort, from proposal writing to client management to staffing to cooking to office management to business management to on-site event management to logistical support to dishwashing to packing and unloading trucks to making menus pretty to finding that last little detail for a station or garnish. No one can do this alone, period. Number two, the only thing that we actually control in this industry is how we treat each other. It literally begins and ends right there. This is probably the most important part of being a manager at TFS. Make no mistake about it, we are where we are today because we have amazing people, and we always have. I've been incredibly lucky to find myself surrounded by passionate and caring people since the very beginning. And I think it's in no small part because of the way that I try to treat people and the environment that I am always striving to create. And now, becoming part of the management team, it's critical that you understand exactly how it is that I hope people treat each other. It's pretty straightforward. There are a few main points. Number one, treat others as you would want others to treat you. Manage how you would want to be managed. Number two, always assume those you are managing are trying their best. Number three, if someone is not succeeding in the task you are assigning them, first ask yourself if you have done everything to help them succeed. Number four, don't waste time getting angry when things don't go right. Create solutions immediately. Number five, be empathetic and hope for, but don't expect empathy in return. And number six, be self-aware. Understand how you are affecting those around you. I know managing can be tough. I know it can be stressful. I know there can be call-outs, crazy clients, inclement weather, late trucks, misinformation, and all kinds of madness that can make things seem unnecessarily difficult. I also know that not everyone treats each other perfectly at all times. I know sometimes people can be downright rude to one another. But I also know that if we try to stick to these points, particularly in the moments when it is most difficult to do so, then we're all making that effort to treat each other as well as we can. When it comes down to being a manager, it's as simple as that. On-site management. What makes on-site management different? First, events are unpredictable. In catering and event planning, 1,001 things can happen. From missing serving utensils to missing servers, on-site management must be ready for any curveball. We never know what's going to happen until it happens. You are limited by your parameters. Your ability to solve issues is restricted by your limited resources and timeline. Whatever solutions you enact will need to fit into your event and work within whatever limitations you are facing, such as venue restrictions, start times, transportation, client requests, etc. You're on. Staff and event issues need to be managed in a professional manner, since you are on site and it's the day of the event. You are often enacting solutions while clients and guests are present, so whatever you do must be done with finesse. On-site management requires special and specific management skills. Our on-site leadership staff are chosen because they have the skills to manage on-site staff and handle on-site problems and issues in a professional manner. What skills are we referring to? Professionalism, effective communication, leadership, problem-solving skills, client and guest service skills. Professionalism. Professionalism is not singular. It involves multiple characteristics including your appearance, demeanor, and attitude. It's about how you conduct yourself. It's pretty much a full package deal. In order to be a professional in this field, or any field, you must be a professional in all aspects. You must look professional, speak to people in a professional manner, carry yourself as a professional, and continuously demonstrate these characteristics while you are working in a professional capacity. It is also the basis of having both staff and clients take you seriously. It should be the foundation of all your actions and conduct while managing on-site. First and foremost, you are a professional. On-site management can be difficult at times. One thing that all successful managers have in common is that they never lose sight of their professionalism. They never allow themselves to step out of that role, and they never allow the situation or circumstances to remove them from that role. Effective communication. Effective communication keeps individuals informed, gets tasks completed, and ensures that your team are all focused towards the same end. In order for communication to be effective, it must be clear and direct. Individuals must clearly understand your intent and what it is you are trying to communicate. Effective communication must also be complete and continuous. Individuals must be able to understand what it is you're trying to accomplish. They need to understand the big picture, and should always receive follow-up communication. And it never hurts to have the individual that you're communicating instructions to repeat those instructions back to you. That way you can be sure that you're both on the same page. Positive communication is a key component of effective communication. It instills staff with confidence, keeps them motivated, and creates a positive work environment. Ever heard the phrase, "You catch more flies with honey than with vinegar"? Managers should always practice positive communication. It is a true test of a professional manager because anyone can berate someone. I mean, in the heat of the moment, it's really easy to lose your cool. Those with sophisticated and compassionate communication skills always find a way to positively communicate the most negative information. It takes a lot of patience, practice, and experience, but it can be accomplished by any good manager. Leadership. Leader means more than just being in charge. It requires dedication, delegation, responsibility, and accountability. Our managers have to be dedicated to pull off a successful event and everything involved with making that happen. Our managers know that they lead a team. No one does this alone. They know that proper delegation of tasks is the only way to get things done on time. Our managers are responsible for leading our teams and our on-site execution, and they take that responsibility seriously. And finally, our managers are accountable for what happens on site, and we can rely on them to be honest with us about any issues or problems. The best leaders lead by example. Being a leader means that you are the constant example of how staff should appear, behave, and conduct themselves. If staff see you doing something inappropriate, they will engage in the behavior themselves, even if they know it's inappropriate as well. There are certain behaviors that a manager can engage in because they are justifiable and understandable because they are expected or required of their position, such as going into restricted areas or toasting a new bride with a glass of champagne. However, other behaviors, such as drinking beer with staff or snacking off a buffet, are not required nor expected of a manager and are examples of poor leadership. A good manager leads by example and makes smart decisions about their conduct and behavior. Problem-solving skills. Catering and event management requires the ability to solve problems at a moment's notice. Problems will absolutely come up with on-site management. It's part of the reason why we have managers, to deal with the issues that come up on site. Problems that arise need immediate solutions since everything we do is on a schedule and time is a huge factor. Managers must always be ready to jump into action with solutions to issues that arise. Experience plus knowledge plus creativity equals problem-solving skills. A manager's ability to solve problems is largely based on their experience, knowledge, and creativity. A good manager will call on their past experience to help address issues. Is this a problem they've dealt with before? Are there past solutions that will work in this situation? This is where experience comes in. A good manager also has a substantial knowledge base of service, hospitality, and procedure that they can call on to figure out a solution. And finally, a good manager is creative because it takes creativity to figure out solutions when your parameters are limited. Hospitality can make or break any business, especially ours. We do a number of things: cater, event plan, etc., in the food, beverage, and hospitality industry. It is more than just an industry, it's a way of being. Our managers are expected to have impeccable hospitality skills and excel at client and guest service. The level of professional service skills that our managers must embody is significant and must be delivered with comfort, ease, and familiarity, as if they live and breathe hospitality. In our business, delicious food and amazing decor completely falls flat if the service that we deliver isn't just as great as the other aspects of the event. Clients and their guests are why we exist, so they are our first priority. The whole reason we exist is because our clients want to put on fabulous events that make their guests happy. That means that our clients and their guests are our first priority. They should never be dismissed, overlooked, or forgotten about. It can be easy to get wrapped up in everything that is going on with the kitchen area, the staff, the timeline, and all the on-site operations that you may forget to check in on the client and keep an eye on the guest and their experience. Regardless of what is going on site, a good manager never forgets that the client and their guests are always the main focus and priority. Know yourself and your management style. What type of person are you? Are you quiet, funny, serious? We bring our personalities with us everywhere we go. They make us who we are. The first step in being a great manager is knowing yourself and what you bring to the table. Everyone's personality has strengths and weaknesses that need to be recognized in order for them to cultivate the best version of themselves. Knowing what personality type you are and how people perceive you will allow you to better understand others and for others to better understand you. Someone who's on the quiet side needs to know that about themselves. It's going to influence how they interact with other staff, guests, their communication style, etc. The same can be said of someone who is direct, someone who is uneasy with conflict, etc. Knowing what personality type you are and how people perceive you will allow you to better understand others and for others to better understand you. Do you love to socialize? Somewhat introverted? Adventurous? Cautious? Take a moment and pinpoint some basic characteristics of your personality. So, what are your best attributes? Are you organized? Skilled at your craft? Great with staying positive? Do you get things done? If you've been chosen for a management or leadership position, it is because you have several positive attributes. You should know what they are and why you're awesome. It may not sound relevant, but knowing your best attributes acts as your foundation for great job performance and professional growth. We naturally feel good about doing things that we're good at. We will naturally try our best at what we excel at, and knowing that we can excel at one thing drives us to try to excel at others. What are your strengths? What do you do well? What makes you great at your job? Let's take a moment and come up with at least 3 positive and professional attributes about you. Which attributes need a little work? Are you easily frustrated? Unable to confront issues? Have a hard time being serious? No one is perfect. We all have some personality flaws that need fixing, or at the very least, self-managing. Every good manager knows that they need to manage themselves first and foremost. And a large part of self-management is making sure that we keep our negative attributes in check. If you're the type of person who is easily frustrated and quick to verbally snap at someone, you need to address that and learn to manage it, especially on site and under stress. If you're the type of person who avoids conflict to the extent that you are unwilling to address staff who are violating rules or procedure, that is an issue and needs to be recognized. Part of managing staff is being willing and able to address them in situations that call for it. If someone cannot successfully manage themselves, they cannot successfully manage a team. A team looks to its leader as an example, and setting a good example includes the ability to recognize areas where growth is needed, and it is one of the key components of being a good manager. What are your weaknesses? What skills need work? What are your constructive self-criticisms? Finally, let's come up with 2 attributes that you could stand to work on, or at least learn to self-manage. There are all different types of management styles. Some people are pretty serious. They like to stay focused. They may not really joke or kid around. They may be pretty direct. But there's nothing wrong with that. Some managers are there for the managing. They're pretty in and out. They come in, they get things done, and they get out of there. They like to keep things light, but they like to make sure that things stay moving. Sometimes they can be super serious. Sometimes they can be really chill. Their attitude and their management style kind of flows as the events flows. And some managers are pretty much just overall laid back. They keep things light, some appropriate joking, and they try to just keep the team smiling. And there's nothing wrong with that either. Management style. No two managers are the same. For example, a manager who's on the quiet side may silently monitor staff, only speaking to someone when necessary, while someone who's more verbal may comment as they're monitoring staff, almost like a continuous feed. Neither management style is wrong, and both are effective. But working under these two different management styles will yield two different experiences for those being managed. Neither better nor worse, just different. It is important to recognize this non-uniformity in the on-site management experience. Staff will have different experiences working with different managers. We must remember that different means just that, different. And we must allow people to have different management styles, as long as those styles are professional, positive, and effective. What kind of manager are you? Do you understand the management styles of others? Take a moment to pinpoint your own management style and ask yourself if you understand the management styles of your coworkers. And if you don't, just be sure to ask. Leading your team. How do you lead an on-site team? As we mentioned before, there are some differences that we deal with in this business. It's simply the nature of catering and events. These differences do not need to act as barriers when it comes to leading your team. They simply need to be addressed. Let's begin with the first rule of leading an on-site team. Know who you're working with. The makeup of your team changes from event to event because almost all of our crew is on call, so they don't have a set schedule with us. Our staff schedule their shifts around their own existing schedules, so there's little consistency in the makeup of your team. A good manager knows who's on their team before they arrive. You can also utilize StaffMate as your last minute or up-to-date resource, especially when the staff you have don't match the staff listed in the event binder. Why do you need to know who's on your team before they arrive? Well, first, it's polite. It's hard for people to rally behind you or follow your lead if you can't be bothered to know who they are. Some names may be difficult to pronounce, but there's nothing wrong with politely asking someone how to pronounce their name. And larger crews may require remembering a lot of names, but a good manager finds a way to learn the names of all the staff on their team. Plus, it's necessary for staff assignments. You need to know your staff so that you can make informed decisions about staffing assignments and tasks. Some people are more effective at performing certain tasks than others, and knowing who your crew is allows you to effectively utilize those staff members for tasks that play to their strengths. A good manager knows who's on their team. Communication and standards. The next rule is kind of a combination of two things. Positively communicate your standards and stick to them. Once your staff begins to arrive, or once you've been assigned your staff, you're going to want to begin with positive interactions. There's absolutely no reason or excuse for any staff to begin their shift with a negative interaction with a manager or lead. We haven't even had a chance for anything to go wrong. so there's no need to start a shift with negativity. Greeting staff with a proper greeting, good afternoon, or hello, how are you, is always a great idea. But feel free to tailor your greeting to your management style. Maybe you're more of a handshake or high five person. Maybe you like personalized greetings where you utilize their name. Either way, all staff should be greeted by their managers or leads, and initial interactions with all staff should be positive, regardless of how things may have been left at a prior event or interaction. When it comes to positively communicating your standards, you do not communicate your standards or expectations during the staff meeting before the event. You do it with every interaction you have with your staff. This means that if you look sloppy, you're communicating a standard of sloppiness. If you yell at staff, you're communicating that yelling is an appropriate form of communication. Your first interactions with staff should include you communicating your standards in a positive way. One of the easiest and most effective ways of doing this is through praise. Letting staff know that you appreciate them showing up on time or that they were right to assist other staff with setting up allows you to positively and continuously communicate your standards to your staff. If the situation does not call for praise, you should still be positive when expressing standards and expectations. For example, if someone's a few minutes late, instead of saying, "You're late, don't let it happen again," try to make it a positive interaction. Try saying, "I enjoy having you on my team, and if you can just work on your arrival time, then you may become the perfect employee." Both express the need for the employee to address their attendance, but one's definitely more positive and better suited for the type of working environment we're trying to create and maintain. A good manager begins with positive interactions and continuous communication of standards. Delegation Loop. Rule 3 is absolutely necessary. Make sure your delegation is a loop, not linear. May sound complicated, but it's actually a simple concept. Leading your team absolutely means delegation on your part. The reason you have a team is because it takes a team to accomplish what we do. No one in this company makes an event happen completely on their own. Everyone needs help. When a good leader delegates, they do not simply give someone a task and send them on their way. A good leader makes sure of 3 things. 1. That when they are delegating a task to someone, that person understands the big picture / final goal. Number 2, that the person understands exactly what is being asked of them and exactly what is expected of them. No confusions or misunderstandings. Finally, the most important thing. This is what makes your delegation a loop. Once the task is completed, the staff member comes back to the lead to confirm the task is completed correctly before the staff member moves on to a new task. When it comes to delegating tasks to a team, especially in this business, it is very important that completed tasks are reviewed before a new task is undertaken. If someone does something incorrectly, such as a table setup or garnishing a dish, and they are not corrected, they're going to continue replicating the wrong thing. They may also affect the tasks that need to be accomplished afterwards. For example, let's say a table set up incorrectly, and you didn't check the setup before delegating the next task. Then you delegate someone to place napkins at the settings. The napkins may be incorrect since the table setting was incorrect and never fixed. If someone is assigned step 2 or 3 in assembling a dish and they do their part incorrectly, it's going to influence how the rest of that dish comes together. This means that all delegation must be looped, where staff are checking back with the lead or manager before moving on to their next task. A good manager delegates in a loop, always confirming the correct completion of tasks before assigning new tasks. Motivational language. Rule 4. Use your words wisely. Your language should motivate, not berate. If someone works for us, it should be assumed that they have some level of competency. If someone shows up to work an event, it should be assumed that they care, at least somewhat. And if someone makes a mistake, it should be assumed it is just that, a mistake. These assumptions should help guide you when you're choosing the right words to use when speaking to staff. Your team is not stupid. They're not lazy. They're not incompetent. Your approach should not assume they are. Your team will most likely not be perfect, but as a manager, you are entrusted with knowing how to speak to your staff in a way that builds them up, not tears them down. This does not happen naturally for everyone and can take some practice and forethought, but you cannot be an effective manager if your team feels as if you do not respect them as employees, and no one feels respected when spoken to in a disrespectful way. Check out these positive and motivational phrases that can be thrown out whenever. And don't forget thank you. Motivational language is not optional. If you're familiar with news or social media, you know that people are held accountable for what they say and how they address people. We are professionals, and in this business, the language you use as a manager reflects on our entire company. So your language must be appropriate. You endanger yourself and the company when you speak to people in a disrespectful manner. Remember, as a manager, you're setting an example. The language you use is the language you will hear on the floor during an event. It is the language you will hear when entering or leaving the kitchen. Remember, you are the standard for your team. And if they hear you swearing, they will assume that casual swearing is part of the standard you set and will follow suit. If you insult an employee, they will think it's okay to insult that employee. If you hear your staff speaking inappropriately, first you must look to yourself and ask what sort of standard you're setting in terms of language. Communication is key. A huge issue for any business is how employees interact with each other. All of our managers and leads should be treating and speaking to employees in a manner that is appropriate and professional. Being a manager or lead and keeping that designation depends largely on communication styles and the ability to communicate effectively and according to company standards. A good manager knows how to be positive and motivate staff throughout an event. A good manager does not berate. Know your role and play your part. Magnificently, of course. You are a lead. You are a manager. You are going to be looked to for knowledge. Make sure you have it. Nothing is more frustrating than going to a manager for answers and continuously hearing, "I'm not sure," or "I don't know." All managers and leads should have an understanding of their positions, the basic rules and procedures for operating in this company, and where staff can go for answers if their lead or manager does not have the answer. As a general rule, it kind of goes like this. A floor manager or head chef should know the ins and outs of the event. Both of these individuals would have had multiple contacts with the event planner about the details of the event. They also have access to information like the event binder. The assistant head chef and captains should have some general knowledge of the event, enough to execute their task, answer general questions, and have a good idea of what's going on, what's to be expected, and the big picture of the event. And if the situation arises where they don't have the answer, they're always able to call on the floor manager or head chef for assistance. The event planner knows everything about the event and can be called on for almost all answers pertaining to the event. When it comes to knowing your role and playing your part, you need to know you are a lead. You have a team to help you. Do not do their job, do yours. In addition to knowing your event, it is important to play the role of a manager. This means that you should be leading and managing, overseeing all aspects of the event, etc., etc. You should not be setting up chafing dishes or placing chargers on the table. Unless you're short-handed or it's a small event and you're the only front of house or back of house on the event, you should not be doing these sorts of tasks. If you are distracted by the small details your team should be doing, like getting ice, then you are not delegating properly, nor are you available for more complicated tasks that require a manager, such as speaking with the client or doing a walkthrough. You also set the standard that this is an event where the manager will step in to do everything, which does not foster initiative amongst your staff. A good manager knows they are a manager and stays in that role. Tools in your toolbox. What are your tools? Every manager and lead has tools that they can use to manage a situation. First, you and your management skills. Second, take 5. Third, verbal warnings. Fourth, reaching out to other managers. And finally, 5th, dismissal from a shift. You and your management skills. The first tool you have to turn to is yourself and your management skills. You must be proactive in dealing with situations before they become problems. Hear staff speaking to each other in a stern fashion or using inappropriate language towards each other? Do not wait for the situation to escalate. Address the situation before it gets worse. Did you send staff off to do a 5-minute task 15 minutes ago? Do not wait for them to come back. Locate them or send someone else to locate them. Your management skills will alleviate 90% of the on-site situations that come up, as long as you use them and take initiative when situations begin to arise. Take 5. Sometimes staff just need to take 5 minutes to cool off. Working an event can bring all sorts of stress, depending on a lot of different factors. So, the thing about working events with on-site staff is that these are not only stressful situations where everyone is under a time crunch, but they bring together a lot of different people, and with that, there can be friction. Taking 5 minutes to breathe, calm down, and think things through can turn around a staff member's attitude, or at the very least, allows them the opportunity to correct their behavior or attitude before a manager turns to further disciplinary action. Making staff take 5 minutes to step away, calm down, and adjust their attitude can help overwhelmed staff reset themselves and gives staff a chance to self-correct. Verbal warnings. If staff have been given a chance to self-correct and issues continue to arise, or if the situation calls for it, a manager can issue a verbal warning. A verbal warning is just that. It's a professionally worded warning that is delivered to staff in the moment in order to let staff know that there is an issue that they need to address. For example, a staff member can be verbally warned about using their cell phone or eating food off of a station. But verbal warnings only work if they're part of an escalated discipline process. Giving out endless verbal warnings is useless, so a manager must keep track of who is being verbally warned about what. And the verbal warning must include a subsequent action. For example, Bob, this is your verbal warning that you cannot have your cell phone out and in use while you are working and on the floor. If you continue to use your cell phone while you are working, I am going to have to dismiss you from this event. Note for verbal warnings. A verbal warning is still part of our disciplinary protocol and needs to be recorded. In the future, the staff feedback forms will include a section where management can indicate if any staff were given a verbal warning while on shift. Until the updated feedback forms are issued, please make sure that you send a follow-up email to the floor manager and/or staffing manager letting them know if any verbal warnings were issued, to which staff, and for what reason, i.e., what were the circumstances. Reaching out to other managers. "98% of issues will not go past a verbal warning. Once staff are verbally warned, they usually self-correct, calm down, adjust their attitude, and get their head back in the game. But every once in a while, a situation will escalate, and there is a step that you must take before you dismiss someone from a shift: reaching out to other managers. Dismissing someone from a shift is a disciplinary action, and unless they are demonstrating behavior that requires immediate dismissal, such as putting people in danger, it should always involve one of the following people: the event planner who's in charge of the event. They should be the first person you reach out to. If you cannot contact them, you can reach out to the staffing manager. If you cannot reach the staffing manager, you can contact the COO. And if you can't get a hold of any of those managers, feel free to reach out to our owner, Tommy. All of this contact information can be found in the event binder. Because dismissing staff from an event is a major disciplinary action and will require follow-up from other managers, we like to be clear of the details and situation that led to the action. You can also reach out to the event planner or other managers for advice on situations. For example, what if someone says they need to leave for, let's say an hour, to let their dog out because the dog walker didn't come? They said they'll be back, but they'll be back 15 minutes after service starts. What should you do? Other managers are always there to help if you need it. Dismissal from the shift. All managers have the ability to dismiss staff from an event as a disciplinary action once they have discussed the situation with an event planner, the staffing manager, the COO, or the owner. However, if staff must be dismissed, the manager should record as many details as they can about the situation, including what the manager did prior to the situation with regards to warnings, to let the staff members self-correct, or if self-correction was even possible in the situation. Those details should be given to the event planner or written in the event binder under staff feedback. Dismissal from a shift should not be taken lightly, as it is the most serious disciplinary action that can be issued on site. But it is an option for managers if situations escalate to that point. Managing your staff. Though there are 1,001 possible issues that could arise, some issues are pretty common or standard when it comes to on-site management. We're going to review some common problems and issues that arise when working on site. First, tardiness. Your staff's late. Staff are told to and should arrive a few minutes early, but that doesn't always happen. Staff should be allotted a few minutes, usually 5 minutes or less, after their start time to account for things like getting into the building or finding the event at a large venue. However, if staff are running late, even by a minute, they should be contacting the on-site manager. Staff who are between 5 and 15 minutes late could receive a verbal warning if the manager thinks it's appropriate, or at least a verbal acknowledgement that the manager is aware that they are late. Staff who are 15 to 30 minutes late require a verbal warning of some sort. If staff is more than 30 minutes late, the manager can refuse to sign them in and dismiss them as having shown up too late and essentially missing their shift. However, if the manager is still willing to sign the staff member in and have them work the event, the manager may do so. Staff has an unprofessional appearance. Staff should always have a professional appearance. If they arrive on site without looking professional, you have to ask yourself, do they look so unprofessional that I can't use them, or can they still work the event? If they look professional enough to work, a manager can issue a verbal warning about the issue. For example, if their hair is messy or their shirt is wrinkled, and any appearance or uniform issues should be reported to the event planner or the staffing manager. If they do not look professional enough to work, a manager can dismiss a staff member whose appearance is deemed too messy or unprofessional to work a shift. However, this still counts as a disciplinary dismissal, so you will need to notify the proper management before dismissing the staff. Cleanliness. Staff is dirty. Along with staff appearance is staff cleanliness. This is especially true with culinary staff who will be working directly with the food. If staff show up dirty, they should always receive some sort of verbal acknowledgement of their lack of cleanliness. Do not embarrass staff, as some cleanliness issues can be sensitive. It is usually best to pull staff aside to a private area when discussing any disciplinary issue, but especially issues of cleanliness or those of any sensitive or personal nature. If staff can clean up on site, such as washing dirty hands or scrubbing dirty nails, they should immediately be directed to do so. If staff are so dirty that they cannot be cleaned up on site, or so unsanitary that it would risk our ability to serve safe food to our clients and guests, then they must be dismissed as a disciplinary action with proper management notification. Professionalism. Staff is being unprofessional. We always want staff behaving in a professional manner, and that begins with setting an example with our own professionalism. Beyond that, if staff are exhibiting unprofessional behavior, such as using foul language, horsing around, being ridiculously loud, Usually letting them know that the behavior they are exhibiting is inappropriate while still being positive is a good way to address these situations. For example, if you come across staff who are using foul language, you may want to say, "Hey you two, I have no issue with you engaging in small talk while you complete this task, but we are on site and need to make sure the language we are using is appropriate. I overheard some inappropriate language, and I would really appreciate it if that sort of language ended. Thanks, you guys. And you two are doing a great job with getting things completed. Your setup looks great." Unlike tardiness, appearance, and cleanliness, where there are few excuses for why staff would have issues with these things, professionalism is a little more gray. It can be easy for our staff to sometimes get caught up in the excitement of setting up for an event, especially with some of our bigger productions, where all the lights and props and entertainment can make staff momentarily forget that they're there to work the event, not partake in the event. For those situations, we want to gently remind staff of where they are and what our purpose is at the event. Most minor unprofessional moments can be handled this way. However, if unprofessional behavior escalates or continues to the point where you are continuously reminding staff to behave in a professional way, then you may resort to the standard disciplinary route of verbally warning the staff member and letting them know that if their behavior continues, you may have to dismiss them from the shift. Verbal arguments. Staff verbally arguing or snipping at each other. Unfortunately, the stress of our events can lead to staff getting into verbal spats or arguments back and forth. It comes with the territory. The first thing that must be done is that the verbal back and forth must be addressed. Do not wait for it to become a full-blown argument. As soon as you hear heated voices, name-calling, yelling, or anything along that line, as a manager, you must stop all involved parties and address the argument. In the example below, a manager may hear two staff arguing and say, "Am I hearing an argument happening here? Is there an issue that needs to be addressed?" If you hear two staff who are arguing, immediately interrupt their conversation. Be firm and serious, but don't be rude, and don't escalate the situation. In dealing with the issue, there may be some management of the conversation. Explain that you want to hear the facts of what's going on without any name calling or accusing anyone, and make sure you allow all parties to quickly explain their issue. If it is an issue that can be addressed simply and quickly, then you should do so. Oftentimes, it's not about any particular problem, but merely personality conflicts or stressful situations. Depending on the amount of time you have to put into the issue, you can either try and resolve the issue, or you can alleviate the pressure from the situation. Try allowing each party to take 5. You can try separating the staff, or re-delegating them to different areas or floors. Let's go back to our example of the two staff who are arguing, and let's pretend like we can't resolve the issue that's happening. A manager may want to say, "Okay, I cannot resolve the issue that is happening between you two. I need to know if you two are able to control yourselves and act in a respectful manner towards each other, or if the issue that is occurring between you two is going to continue to result in a lack of professionalism. If the disrespectful behavior and lack of professionalism continues, I will have no choice but to dismiss you from this event, and I would hate to do that because I enjoy working with the both of you. But your behavior is hindering our ability to have a successful event, and we can't allow that to happen." Insubordination. Staff who just refuse to listen. Sometimes staff just don't seem to listen to you, no matter what you say. First, you have to ask whether this person is purposefully disregarding you or if they are misunderstanding you. For example, in the situation where a staff person is misunderstanding you, you may say, "I asked you to put the 6-inch pine boats under the station tables. Where are they?" If they respond, "Oh, sorry, I put them under the tables in the kitchen. I thought that was what you asked for. I'll get them." That's the sign of someone who clearly misunderstood what you were asking for them. They completed the task, they just didn't complete it correctly. Versus a situation where a staff member purposefully disregards you. For example, a manager may say, "I asked you to slice a dozen lemons. What happened to them?" If the staff member responds, "Oh, I actually cut those into wedges. We're going to use them for the fish and chip station, right? Yeah, I thought wedges would work better." That's a sign of insubordination. If staff have misunderstood what you have asked of them, then you should treat it like a misunderstanding and not reprimand them. You should simply find a different way to explain what you have asked them to do and have the staff member repeat the instructions back to you, which should be standard practice. If staff have purposefully disregarded you, you have a number of options. You can remind them of the hierarchy. You can let them know that for a number of reasons, whether it's part of the production plan, or it's what the client asked for, or it's what the event planner asked for, we need to make sure that we execute tasks without adding our own creative touches. That's what we have event planners for. You can also issue a verbal warning letting them know that though they are free to ask questions or get clarification, they must execute tasks as instructed. If they continue to disregard instructions, a manager can dismiss the staff. Staff drinking or doing drugs. This can be a complicated and sticky issue. If you see with your own eyes staff drinking any alcohol, whether from the event or self-provided, you need to immediately contact your event planner or a manager and begin the shift dismissal procedure. If you believe staff may be intoxicated, even though you yourself did not witness the intoxication, reach out to the event planner or a manager and explain the situation. However, in these situations, you must keep in mind that you cannot just dismiss staff without ensuring that they are physically safe. You cannot dismiss intoxicated staff knowing they are going to drive themselves home. You cannot let clearly intoxicated staff leave the premise if they do not know their whereabouts or cannot perform basic functions like walking, speaking, etc. If staff are too intoxicated to leave, make sure you have someone to assist you with the situation. Another lead, if possible, or someone from your crew. Make sure that you are in constant communication with your event planner, the staffing manager, the COO, or the owner throughout this process. Staff that have been drinking and are too intoxicated to get themselves home can be sent home in an Uber or Lyft, either paid for or reimbursed by TFS, once you have completed the dismissal process. Staff who have been drinking but can get themselves home via their own ride or public transit can simply be dismissed once you have gone through proper communication. Staff who are intoxicated off of other substances, not alcohol, may need to be handled differently. Based on the substance, you may be able to dismiss the staff and allow them to get home on their own accord. Get an Uber or Lyft for the staff member, or If the situation is escalated to a medical issue, an ambulance may need to be called. You and the manager you speak with will come up with the best plan of action. Review: Management and leadership. Professionalism. It is not singular. It involves multiple characteristics, including your appearance, demeanor, and attitude. It's about how you conduct yourself. It is the basis of having both staff and clients take you seriously. It should be the foundation of all of your actions and conduct while managing on site. First and foremost, you are a professional. Effective communication. Effective communication keeps individuals informed, gets tasks completed, and ensures that your team are all focused towards the same end. Positive communication is a key component of effective communication. It instills staff with confidence, keeps staff motivated, and creates a positive work environment. Leadership. Leader means more than just being in charge. It requires dedication, delegation, responsibility, and accountability. Remember, the best leaders lead by example. Problem-solving skills. Catering and event management requires the ability to solve problems at a moment's notice. Your problem-solving skills are a combination of your experience, your knowledge, and your creativity. Client and guest service skills. Hospitality can make or break any business, especially ours. Clients and their guests are why we exist, so they are always our first priority. Now, let's revisit our rules. First rule, know who is working with you. Make sure you know their names. If you don't, look up the info on StaffMate. Why? Because it's polite and professional. Positively communicate your standards. Start all your interactions and your event with positive communication. Stick to your standards and communicate them continuously throughout the event. Make sure your delegation is a loop, not linear. Delegate tasks properly and explain the bigger picture. Your language should motivate, not berate. Language should be positive. You set your standards with the language you use, so try to use motivational phrases. Know your role and play your part. Make sure you know everything that you need to know. And remember, a good manager manages. And last but not least, remember your tools. First, you and your management skills. You and your management skills are your first line of defense and are best if used proactively to handle situations before they become problems. Take 5. Allowing staff to take 5 gives staff involved in verbal disagreements or staff who are simply stressed out time to calm and self-correct. Verbal warning. Appropriate for many situations, verbal warnings must address the issue or behavior that is problematic and should include the escalated disciplinary action that will result if the inappropriate behavior continues. Reach out to a manager. If verbal warnings are not working and you are thinking about dismissing a staff member from a shift, you must reach out to the event planner, the staffing manager, the COO, or the owner before dismissing. Dismissal from a shift. This is the most extreme disciplinary action that an on-site manager can issue and is used as a last resort when other methods have not yielded results. Well, thanks for going through our management and leadership training. I hope it was helpful, informative, and I wish you all the best of luck in your future management roles with the Fire Society.